The next world war is coming, and France is already preparing their troops to enter the Ukraine. In fact, Russia has just confirmed that some of them are already there, even though France is telling us that this isn't a done deal. They're out talking to news outlets and discussing the possibility of sending military trainers to Ukraine, but the concern is now growing among residents as many feel as if this will endanger the troops of France. In fact, the idea is getting so much backlash that coffins were placed near the Eiffel Tower to show the outrage for this decision. But instead of thinking that it was their own citizens who put these coffins there, France chose to point the blame elsewhere. They're saying that this was just a stunt from Russia. A stunt that they say aims to change the public's perception about their country's support for Ukraine. Some argue that the perception toward any country being dragged into a war will always be negative, especially since not all of us are in favor of going into wars that waste the lives of the people around us. But here's what happened recently in France.
Here in France, investigators say they believe that Russia was behind a stunt near the Eiffel Tower during the weekend. Police have arrested 3 people after 5 coffins were left near to the Eiffel Tower, draped in French flags. Investigators believe this stunt is connected with a propaganda campaign to affect public opinion. And this stunt is also likely to be connected to at least 2 other recent incidents here in Paris. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by France 24's Monty Francis from the newsroom. Monty, welcome to the programme. First of all, what more do we know about this incident at the Eiffel Tower?
Well, so Tom, this happened at about 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. Essentially, these 5 coffins just showed up on the sidewalk in front of the Eiffel Tower. They were covered in the French flag and also an inscription written in French that said French soldiers in Ukraine. Inside there were just harmless sacks of plaster. Now, those coffins had been unloaded from a van, and police arrested 3 suspects. They arrested the driver immediately there at the scene. He told them he had been paid 40 euros to transport the coffins. The 2 other suspects were later located at a bus station in central Paris, and they were apparently planning to board a bus for Berlin. They told investigators they had been paid 400 euros to place the coffins there. French media is reporting that the driver is from Bulgaria. The other 2 men are from Ukraine and Germany, and investigators say these men have ties to Russia. So what would be the motivation here? Why would Russia want to do something like this? Remember, Moscow has been quite upset with French President Emmanuel Macron, who has failed to rule out sending troops to Ukraine, also holding discussions to send French instructors to Ukraine to train Ukrainian soldiers. And Russia, as you might expect, has dismissed these accusations as untrue.
He did say that one of the 3 suspects was from Ukraine, right? Because some analysts believe that this is more of a false flag event from Ukraine rather than a declaration of war from Russia. But here's what you have to know. Ukraine's already confirmed that France will be sending military trainers to their country. In a seemingly caught on camera moment, Ukraine's top commander slipped and said that he's already signed the paperwork that would allow these trainers to enter the country. The intent in signing these documents was to allow these instructors to go in and now familiarize themselves with their infrastructure and personnel. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when you sign for anything, that pretty much is the end of the deal. Negotiations are done by that point. But Ukraine quickly backpedaled on this statement and said that they're only expressing interest in a project that would receive trainers from France. And to date, they're still talking about this possibility. So what exactly did that guy sign? And Russia has already warned about this decision from both France and from Ukraine. Putin says that it's just one more step toward global conflict, which made me realize something. Why is the Biden administration not pushing for peace talks between Russia and the Ukraine? Putin's already said that he's open to it, although it's obvious that Zelensky wants no part of it, which is weird because the White House is pushing for peace between Israel and Hamas. It makes you wonder, what's the difference between the 2 conflicts? Doesn't he care about Ukraine and its people? Because he sent around $200 billion there already. Stopping the war would end the need for taxpayer money to be sent time and time again to Ukraine. But that doesn't seem to be the plan for them. The same idea is also being propagated by France, as it looks like they're ready to go to war with Russia. Moscow's top diplomat said in a recent statement that French armed forces that would be entering Ukraine would be legitimate targets for Russia. A spokesman for the Kremlin confirmed this by saying that any instructor, be it from France or not, that are training the Ukraine regime are not immune to attacks. This means that if possible and within range, these troops would come under fire directly from Russia. Which now brings me to Poland. A military analyst has recently gone on record to say that Poland could be wiped off the map map in no more than 10 minutes. This would be done by Russia nuking the entire country and using 2 nukes per city. This means that it would take around 30 to 40 missiles for the entire country to be completely annihilated. As we know, Poland is a NATO member, and it was just used as an example of how Russia can use its nuclear capabilities. This is now a sign that Russia is not going to back down. If NATO escalates this conflict further, well, it's expected that they will retaliate. But what's President Joe Biden doing about all of this? Well, he recently landed in France to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day. He's in France where he's expected to talk with President Emmanuel Macron, the same Macron that's getting on Putin's nerves as of late. And since President Biden is already in Europe, he has to at least meet with Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky so that he can talk about Russia as well. Either that or he's promising billions of dollars in military aid again. It's also worth noting that D-Day isn't something that's taken lightly. This altered the course of the Second World War and changed all of our lives, which is why a lot of critics are offended as to why they're using this as a backdrop for their talks about Russia. Biden said that D-Day is one of the most important moments in history of defense of freedom and democracy in the history of the world.
Well, today marks 80 years since the D-Day invasion on the beaches of Normandy, France during World War II. Now, the heroes of that war, both those who died and those who survived, are being honored today in ceremonies in France. D-Day was the start of the Allied invasion against Nazi Germany that led to the end of the war in Europe. Elaine Cobb is in Normandy, France, where President Biden warned that democracy is now at risk more than any other point since World War II.
President Biden and the First Lady bowed their heads in front of a wreath at the American cemetery overlooking Omaha Beach, where more than 9,000 U.S. soldiers are buried.
Monsieur Bill Cassasa.
Earlier, he was joined by French President Emmanuel Macron, who bestowed the Legion of Honor, France's highest award, on 11 U.S. World War II veterans.
In memory of those who fought here, died here, literally saved the world here. Let us be worthy of their sacrifice.
The president marked the 80 years since the D-Day invasion by saying the U.S. and its allies will not walk away from Ukraine as it continues to defend itself against Russia.
We're living in a time when democracy is more at risk across the world than any point since the end of World War II, since these beaches were stormed.
Before the ceremony, the president met with some of the men who survived World War II, all of them pushing 100 years old or even older. Onofrio Zicari from Syracuse, New York, was 21 years old when he landed here.
We landed and we had to crawl on the beach, really. I looked over and there's this GI. He was sitting on his helmet and he was holding his guts. The war brings nothing but misery, nothing but misery.
With each passing year, fewer and fewer veterans remain to tell the world what happened that day.
He likened it to the war that's going to be fought at the ballots by November, alluding to the idea that he's the one to vote for. But what do you guys think about this plan? Do any of you also find it kind of odd as to why Russia's Ukraine war has to keep going? Now, I understand that we all have different opinions on the matter, and I respect that. My job is just to make sure that you guys are informed of the truth every single day. Now, before I go, I just want to thank you all for hitting the like button. Thanks so much for subscribing to the channel and sharing this video, and I'll see you on the next one.